Everyone, Chris Bayless here, founder of the Sponsorship Collective. In this video, I want to share with you my 10 favorite questions every time I'm meeting with a potential sponsor. Check it out. Let's talk about my 10 favorite questions for every sponsor or every potential sponsor. And it's worth noting, these questions have come from literally thousands of meetings with sponsors that I've done directly, meetings that my consulting and coaching team have done directly, and meetings that our clients have had with sponsors. These 10 questions really hit all the high points when you're talking to potential sponsors. And let you know a little secret, not one of them is, where can I send my gold, silver, bronze package? Let's dive in. And I should say, if you find value in these videos, it would mean a lot to me if you hit the thumbs up button and click the subscribe button so that you never miss another video. My favorite question by far is, who is your target audience? For a few reasons. First and foremost, sponsorship is nothing without audience. It's the most important thing. You don't have audience alignment, you're not getting sponsorship that day. Second of all, by asking this question first, I'm telling my sponsors that I speak their language, that I understand sponsorship is about audience engagement and not logos on signs. The last thing you want to do is let your sponsors think that you believe sponsorship is about logo placement and so-called brand awareness. Instead, you want them to know that you care about connecting them to their potential audience, to their target audience, and that you know how to do it. And this question is perfect for that. You get great information and you send a really strong message that you're a sponsorship professional. And that question segues perfectly into the next question, which is, what does your target market value? Who is your target audience? You could get an answer and then make a recommendation to the sponsor that you put logos in front of that audience, which of course would be a terrible strategy. Instead, you want to understand qualitative and quantitative information about their audience. You want to know what their audience is made up of. You want to know what makes them tick. You want to know psychographic information. You want to know values information, what they're looking for, what they want to experience, so that you can build something custom just for that audience. That is, after all, what sponsorship is. So asking the question, what does your target market value, continues down this path of audience first, which of course sponsorship must be, and also helps you tailor something just for the sponsor to connect with their exact audience. It's worth sharing that these questions are in a particular order. It doesn't mean you should ask them in this order, but they do lead nicely to each other, which brings me to the next question. What can you tell me about your sales goals for the coming year? Hey, who's your target audience? What do they value? And what are you trying to sell them? How much are you trying to sell them? How many widgets would you like them to buy? This is the flow of the conversation that we want to focus on. Notice it's not, hey, we could get you tons of awareness for your brand. If you just put a logo on a sign, we'll get 10 million eyeballs for you. It's, who are your niche audiences? What are you trying to get them to do? What are you trying to get them to buy? And what does your audience want? Because what you're really trying to get at is whether or not you and the sponsor have alignment, a shared audience, and a way of converting that audience to purchases for your sponsor, not awareness units. This is really important because you're going to be trying to connect your potential sponsor's sales goals to the outcomes of your sponsorship activations. And if you don't know what the sales goals are, you won't be able to do that. Now let's switch gears a bit here and ask your potential sponsor, hey, can you tell me about your latest marketing and sales campaign? What went right? What went wrong? What do you wish was different? This is obviously 3 questions in one. Notice that the question is about marketing and sales campaigns, not, quote, sponsorship. Because in all likelihood, if your potential sponsor, this brand, has been doing sponsorship, they're likely disappointed with it because most other sponsorship properties, despite my advice and despite the advice of all of the sponsors out there, keep putting logos on stuff. So if you say, hey, tell me about a sponsorship opportunity that you worked on, they're going to say, oh, we named a building. Oh, we gave out a bunch of samples. If we shift the question into marketing and sales campaigns more broadly, we're going to get a better sense of where this potential sponsor is spending their money and what they prioritize. Because if you can do it better, cheaper, faster, or all of the above, then you're going to win their marketing and sales dollars over to your sponsorship opportunity. Now it's time to ask a sponsorship specific question. I want to ask, how do you normally engage in sponsorship? Now, why am I asking this question right after I just asked them about their marketing and sales goals? Because I want to hear if the way they do sponsorship is different than the way they do marketing. Why? Because if the brand that I'm speaking to treats sponsorship differently than a marketing and sales discipline, then I'm going to use this as an opportunity to educate them that they may not be happy with their sponsorship because they're treating it differently. So I'm going to ask them, how do you normally engage in sponsorship? And if what they say is any different, like, oh, we just kind of give to good causes, oh, we just put logos on stuff, then I'm going to ask them a follow-up question. I'm curious, why do you treat sponsorship differently than marketing, given how powerful a marketing tool sponsorship really is? And then I'm just going to be silent and wait for their response. And that's when the education can come in, where I would follow up with, well, that's interesting. We find that our sponsors have a far better impact and better result when they think of sponsorship like marketing. I would love to share a case study with you. And now I've opened up the conversation for sharing a case study as part of my proposal delivery. Now, as we move into the close, and in sponsorship, the close is really booking a meeting from a meeting and being invited to deliver a sponsorship proposal in person. I want to know, what would you consider to be the most important elements of a sponsorship package? And I'm going to drill down every time they give me an answer. For example, what would you consider to be the most important elements of a sponsorship package? Well, mostly logo placement. I see. Why logo placement? What are you trying to accomplish? Now, you told me earlier your sales goals are X. How does logo placement directly contribute to that? How would you know that logo placement has accomplished your sales goals? If you were looking back and it went wrong, what would have to have happened for logo placement to not have generated sales? I'm asking second, third, fourth order questions. I want to drill down and understand why. And if they say something I like, well, all of our sponsorship is highly customized and highly activation based. I'm going to ask the same series of questions. Why is that? What have you found that about experiential marketing and engagement that delivers on your sales goals, that your audience loves? What would have to go wrong for your audience not to love this experiential campaign you put together? If I hear something I like or don't like, irrelevant. I want to ask 2, 3, 4 questions in response to everything they tell me here. So think of these 10 questions as 10 opening questions, each of which would drill down into 2 or 3 questions. Then we want to know how they measure success. Again, if they're doing sponsorship off the side of their desk, they may not be measuring outcomes at all. Maybe they're too busy to measure outcomes, which means that when you provide a fulfillment report to your sponsor, you're going to be delivering a service to them that they hadn't considered before. But we want to get a sense of how they know their sponsorship is working. So I want to ask the question, hey, how do you measure the success of a sponsorship? And when they give me the answer, I'm going to ask, is that different than how you would measure a sales campaign, a marketing campaign, an employee engagement campaign, a community investment campaign? If it is different, why? If it's not different, tell me more about that. How are they the same? In what ways are they the same? What do you wish you could measure that you're not currently measuring? And I am taking tons of notes throughout this meeting. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that I personally bring nothing to sponsorship meetings. No phone, no iPad, no notepad, definitely no proposal, no leave behinds, no sales materials. So I'm keeping notes in my head. That may be a tall order for you. You might prefer to take notes, in which case, at the opening of the meeting, simply ask permission. Hey, do you mind if I take notes throughout? I just don't want to forget anything. So a notepad and pen to me is an acceptable thing to bring with you, not sales material. If you can commit these things to memory, I find going with nothing at all and just connecting with the person, really understanding them and summarizing back to them, I find that to be the best way. But there's no point in asking all of these great questions if you're just going to forget the answers. So if you need to bring a notepad, do so. Hey, can you tell me about the most successful sponsorship that you've been part of? And what about your least successful sponsorship? What happened? Why was it successful? Why wasn't it successful? What do you wish was different? If you go back and wave a magic wand and change one thing, what would it be? If you go back and wave a magic wand and just do more of one thing, what would it be? And then the question that everybody skips: what's your budget? Don't be afraid to talk about money. It's important. It's going to come up eventually. You might as well get all the cards on the table now. Here's what typically happens. We don't ask budget. We don't discover what their budget is. So that means we did not do discovery well. We go back to our office, make a whole bunch of assumptions about what they want to spend, and then come up with the terrible idea to create a grid, label them gold, silver, bronze, or any other name, send it back to the sponsor in hopes that you magically guessed at their budget. That doesn't work. Either you go way too low and alienate your sponsor, right? You damage your brand. They think that you're not a high value partner, or you leave tons of money on the table, or you go way too high because you assume they had a budget bigger than they do. You guys don't work together, but you could have if you just asked the question, what's your budget? Hey, can you tell me what your budget is for these types of outcomes? Can you tell me what your budget is to achieve these sales goals? Not what's your sponsorship budget. What's your budget to achieve these goals? If we were to get you 10 of the outcomes that you said you wanted, or 100, or 1,000, what would that be worth to you? Can you give me a range within which I should put something together? We can always adjust it later. I just want to make sure that I'm putting together a meaningful proposal for you. These are the kind of questions that you want to ask. If they push back and say, well, we don't know what our budget is, that's great. I'm not asking you to tell me how much you're going to write a check for today. I just want to get a sense of what range. If I were to send you a proposal worth $50 million, is it even possible that you would say yes to that? Of course not. So give me your upper range. Give me your low range. What should I stay above? What's your average sponsorship? What's your average marketing campaign? Right? These are the types of questions that we're trying to ask, or that we want to ask, to tease out what their budget is. If the question, hey, what's your budget for this, is too direct and or they just don't answer, then you want to, again, ask drill down questions. If I've asked somebody 8 times what their budget is and they still won't answer, then that's a feedback loop for me to know that I didn't do discovery right. And guessing at a budget is not something I'm willing to do. Then my favorite question, because it leads to BAM FAM, or book a meeting from a meeting, is when should we meet to discuss a proposal? You heard me right. Not where should I send this proposal so that you can ghost me. When would you like to meet to go over this proposal that I'm going to put together for you? Everything we do is custom. I'm going to put together a few custom options within the budget range you gave me that achieves the outcomes we discussed. Let's go over the draft together. You tell me if I'm on the right track. What day next week would you like to sit down and go over a proposal together? Book a meeting from a meeting. Never leave a sales meeting without the next step on the calendar. In the comments down below, what's your favorite question for sponsors? What's the question that you love asking that always gets a great response? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to see what's working for you. And remember, the sponsorship proposal does not make the sale. You do. Good luck out there.